Let's go to New Orleans.
Mm.
The number one question. And really, like, it's not the only question, but it's definitely like the only real question that matters. It's, do you give Zion Williamson the max extension?
I would. I as much as it freaks me out because of him missing the whole year and setbacks and everything like that. Zion Williamson is truly special, and I think the passage of
Yeah.
time has maybe made some people forget how good the second half of his second year was, and you don't get that opportunity very often. The nuance that I would put in there, and I honestly think Zion might play with this if this is the way you do it. So back when Joel Embiid signed his rookie scale extension after he had plenty of injuries in his near rearview mirror, is they put the Sixers had protections negotiate. They negotiated protections in that deal that were really they codified early, and they only really mattered if they cut Embiid. So it was more like a mitigation of a worst case scenario rather than like
Yeah.
a non-guarantee on the last year where you get a lot more information. It was more like if 2 years ahead of time we think we're going to cut you, then we won't have to pay you the full thing.
Yeah.
And I think that is a reasonable framework. If Zion said no, I'm not willing to accept that. I'm going to Chandler Parsons this situation. And for those who don't know, I will swear once, Max or nothing motherfuckers. Like, if that's what he says, I would give it to him, but I don't think the Pels would.
So I just do want to remind people, Zion Williamson, as a 20-year-old in the NBA, averaged 27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and shot 61% from the field. Zion Williamson is a fucking superstar.
And who
That
was
guy,
maybe the best post scorer in the best paint scorer in the league in a year when Giannis was a monster.
yes. Zion Williamson is incredible. He is absolutely unbelievable. You absolutely give him the max, I think. And you pray and you hope it goes well. You put in some mitigation language. You give him the max. You have to do it. It's impossible to find guys like this.
Yeah,
Like, and you hope, and if you're him, you have to agree to it, I think, given where your situation has been recently.
and this ties in with what we talked about before, which is that if it ends up being a circumstance where you don't want to be there, it's actually easier to make your way out once you've secured the money than beforehand. And so,
Mhm.
especially on a rookie scale extension, because it comes a year early. So
Yeah.
for Zion to force his way out another way would take so much longer. And who knows if he even wants that? I mean, it has been the scuttlebutt for a long time, but scuttlebutt is that. So I wouldn't be super freaked out. What else you want to talk about in the Pels?
The Pelicans have a lot of weird extension candidates. They
Mm-hmm.
have CJ McCollum. They have Jackson Hayes. They have Larry Nance. Do you extend any of these guys? I feel like if you could extend McCollum for an extra year or two, you probably try and do that, right?
I wouldn't do it at close to his current contract value. I like CJ a lot, but that's just a lot of money. And we don't, I would say waiting a year with him because CJ's contract doesn't expire until 24. So you have some
Yeah.
time there. We will get a lot more detail, possibly. I mean, teams probably will than you and I will on what the next television deal is going to look like. And then
Yeah.
at that point, between that and Zion, you will know a lot more about where your books are. And I don't think McCollum, he just got there. I don't think that he's going to be agitating for a full boat extension right now. And if he is, then
Yeah.
you could just tell him, unfortunately, we need more information. And I think that's fine. And then
The,
no, I wouldn't do it. I like with Jackson Hayes, I know that Willie Green gave him some starts, but you don't know what his fit is with the best iteration of this team. And
right.
so unless he's going to take deep below market, like I'm talking like $5 million a year, you don't do it. And those kind of extensions almost never happen.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I agree with you. They need to find out what these guys all look like with Zion. CJ is theoretically an incredible fit with Zion, given just the pick and roll ability, the 3-level scoring game, really 2-level, I guess, from mid range and from 3. But that could fit really, really well with Zion just driving to the rim constantly and opening up space in the mid range for him. I would probably wait though. The final question here is just how much is this ownership going to be willing to pay? Because this team is very close to being a tax team already. Do they try and move some guys on, 8-figure deals already? Like maybe Devontae Graham? Do they try and move maybe a Larry Nance just to kind of get away from the tax a little bit this offseason and create some roster spots? Because this has potential to be a very stagnant roster. going into next year. And they might be okay with that, getting Zion back and being willing to just play with it. But I do think how much ownership is willing to pay for a roster like this is an interesting question.
It is. I would be willing to go, close to the tax, but ownership can make their own decision. And the good news for the Pelicans is they can hold the line for this coming season and then make those decisions for the following year. It will look
Yeah.
daunting at first, but they'll be able to clarify whether, at that point, Graham will only have one fully guaranteed season, then he has a very light partial guarantee for the following year. So that becomes movable. You'll know what you have in Jackson Hayes and Larry Nance. So when you're a veteran and you're extension eligible, you can extend all the way until the very end, right before you become a free agent. So with Nance, I wouldn't do one right now. There's a chance I would do one in April, May, or June, depending on where things go.
Yeah. If I was the Pelicans, I think I probably would just try and run this back. I would try and get someone like Dyson Daniels in the draft at number 8. I would be very happy with guys like Trey Murphy and CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram, who can space the floor around Zion. And I would see how all of these pieces fit with Zion and just kind of run it back and extend this thing out for another year. I know that's not like a sexy outcome for people who want like off-season movement, but I would just kind of let it roll.